Hi, it's me, Mina again, making another diag video. This video is what I've learned as a first year diag, which what I will complete. June 21st will be my first full year as a diagnostician. One of the things I think that's the most important is you buy this book called Rights Law. Because if you were a special ed teacher, some of these laws will sound familiar. If you've never been a SPED teacher and you just became a diag, you won't know what they're talking about. Also, the guide to the Rights Law, WRIGHT-LAW, is really a big overview of the policies and procedure guide that we give to the parents. And you need to know that one backwards and forward. Learn your district's procedures, because your district may have a different way of intake, doing transfers, how they handle schedules of arts. I think you need to also, talk to your lead teacher first when you first get out of your training and they go to their campuses to find out what was it like last year for you all. What days did you hold arts on and what times? Did you like those times, or would you like to change them? Where they're being held, things like that. Do you have to book a room for the art, or will it be in my office because I have a conference area? That type of thing. Always, 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 always write things down. This year, because I was a first year diag, I went out and bought this calendar that I thought I was going to love. Well, I had to put my own dates in it. I did like it because it offered me paper space. But what I found out was during my training, I wasn't using it. What I did was I had a whole tablet that I was writing notes in. And I really should have been writing it in that calendar as she was talking, so I wouldn't have to go back and forth between these books. The free calendar is probably your best calendar that you'll get from the school, because you can get several of them and it doesn't matter. You know, the one they give you from the credit union or the bank or whatever. But you can always get your own calendar. If you were a SPED teacher or a teacher of any kind and you had a favorite calendar that you used, that you could add paper to or whatever, make sure you add things like the school schedule. Pull that down from the district website along with the bell schedule in the buildings that you'll be working, so you'll know when and where and what time. Also, share your calendar with your lead teacher as well as your SPED teachers. If you're using Windows or Google Docs or Outlook or whatever, make sure they're included so they can see your schedule as you're scheduling these arts or testing or in meetings and things like that. So they just won't assume you're always just sitting in your office. Handle transfers very quickly. The first day of school, you're going to get a lot of kids that come in, and the registrar may or may not know. You're going to get a lot of kids that may be foster, may not be foster. You're going to get a lot of kids that come in with paperwork. So make sure you have some type of verification system from your district. My district had a paper that I had to use to verify. And if they walked in with the FIE and the ARD, and the IEP, then that was fine. I could just write that on the sheet. Ask the parent as many questions as they can, because sometimes they come in with an incomplete document. And you need to know, was this child in a unit? Did they go out? Because like I say, sometimes they just bring you the IEP. And usually from the IEP, you can tell if they were in a self-contained unit. Did they go out for resource? Were they in inclusion? What type of support they could get? Always, if a problem jumps off on campus, confer with your supervisor first. Tell the principal or the teacher when they come to you, because they will, that you're going to have to ask your supervisor. Or how did they handle that last year? And if it doesn't sound right, make sure you always end the conversation with, okay, let me get back with you by the end of business after I've spoken with my supervisor. Always helps, because especially if it's something that they want to do that they weren't doing last year and they know that they can't do it, but they know you're new, so you'll agree to anything. Make sure your teachers, if you have eSPED, what I didn't realize was I came from Easy IEP and we could see our caseload. Well, eSPED doesn't show you the caseload. And some schools don't give the case managers access to their own caseload. So what I did was I printed it off for them for the year so they could find their kids. And as the kids got updated in there, I also did that. When you get a copy of a transfer kit, make sure if you have the time, because you may or may not, give the original copy to the lead, the chairperson, or whoever that is. As you're uploading the copy that you get from the parent or the other school into Archive Manager, always make sure they know it's in Archive Manager so they can look at it if you have Easy IEP. When I send my notices out to my parents, I would do several things, because most parents have email and they have parent portal and it's attached to their email. It's on their paperwork. So I would always email, mail, because let us use district mail and we didn't have to buy the stamps. And I would hand a copy to the kid. And I did that 3 times to make sure you were notified. So that meant you got 9 different things from me. The case manager is always supposed to be the last contact to say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, did you get that notice from Miss So-and-so stating that the meeting was on this day? Now, in my case, I didn't negotiate times and dates, mainly because I was a SPED teacher in a centralized unit, and I found myself negotiating times and dates and parents never came. But in some situations, they want you to do them on planning period. They want you to do them after school or before school, not doing lunch, things like that. But I was blessed to have a case manager that offered up several days. The lead teacher offered up several days, and she would find coverage. Usually it meant she was using her TAs or the people's TAs in other classes to cover a general education teacher's class so they could come. Or even if it was a resource teacher, she may have had to use 2 of her TAs because she needed someone to cover the resource class and cover this class. So those things were possible. Check for things, when you get your caseload, check for things that were promised from last year. Like if they said they were going to do FBA and a BIP or speech counseling or something like that, and it had to be done by, like this is 2019, they were going to do it August 2019. Make sure those things are done and you have your consent to evaluate on file. If you don't have that consent to evaluate, it doesn't matter anyway, because the time frame doesn't start until the evaluation to the consent gets in your hand. But if it's on file somewhere, like they got it at the end of the year, then it's going to be due by that date unless you come back to the committee and ask them for more time because you just received this. What I did when I first got there, because we had those transfer papers, those verification papers, I made different folders. I used green folders for my transfer kids that I just picked up at Staples, Walmart, wherever, because I knew that they were transferring in with information. It gave me the chance to divide them up for you're just coming in and am I finished with your paperwork and can we go to R, things like that. When I went to R with certain kids, especially my transfer kids, I always brought that green folder, the signature pages, prior written notices, everything I thought I was going to need. Now, if you're going to R with a regular kid that's already in there, you're not printing off the IEP. Some people do. They take them in draft and let the parents see them. But usually in this district that I work in, not so much unless the parent asks for a draft copy. Testing, make sure you print off all the information. When they give you that evaluation that's gone through RTI or however your school does it, make sure that when you're creating that folder for them to put the test in, whether you're giving them the WIS, the KBAC, KTEA, whatever, you're putting that notice of consent in there that you've archived. You're putting in the RTI paperwork. You're putting in the test booklets you're going to need to test that kid. Now, what I did was on the outside of that folder, I put the kid's name, ID number, and sometimes I print their schedule out, but what I noticed is over time that schedule would kind of fall off. So I kept that inside the folder. But I would put their name, their ID number, and I would put the date of consent that I received it. Because it's going in eSped, but you still aren't always checking eSped. The date I received it, the date it was due in the system, and the tentative date we were going to R. And so that way I had a little filing system by if you gave it to me in this month, it's going to be due by this month. So I knew that to put this folder back here, and I always kept them in numerical order so that way I could keep up with them. If you don't know, just ask. It's not a problem. Your supervisor's there. If he or she is not condescending, they know that you're first year diag. And there's a lot of things that they don't teach you coming out of school because you're learning theory most of the times that are coming out of books versus the things that are actually happening on campus. Don't get involved with the campus BS. like grades. People will call you in for grades. People will call you in about buses, kids running off campus, discipline, any of that crap that would normally happen when you were a SPED teacher that was handled by the campus administrators. Don't get in that. You have nothing to do with that because you're there to test, write reports, handle the R, and move on. The only time you really need to be involved in an art is when it's a failure art. But make sure your teachers understand if they don't have the proper documentation, that means everything you have tried in and out of season to fail a kid, then there's no need for us to go back to art. Don't come to me talking about failure after the first 6 weeks, first 2 weeks, because if the SPED inclusion teacher or the SPED resource teacher has not documented every interventional strategy that they have tried and been successful, or asked you to come back and let's rewrite some goals and objectives or some things like that, don't fall into that because you'll be scheduling failure arts all year. Some things parents call you for, you don't need an art. They're asking to set up an R with the teacher. Well, it's not an R. You just want a parent meeting. I don't have to be there for that. And sometimes it's good before you go to art if you're having a kid that you don't know, especially for testing or there's been a behavior problem or things like that. Have staffing first with your staff that's going to be in the meeting so you can discuss the things you need to know or want to talk about and how to handle it before you go to art and you're sitting there in front of the parent like, oh, I don't know what to say. Always check your calendar. I check mine on Sundays nights to make sure I'm supposed to be in the right place, right time. I check it on Friday before I leave because I should have prepared all my stuff for my arts the next week. Don't stay past quitting time. If you get off at 4:30, 4:30 is what you should be doing. By 4:15, you should be going to the bathroom, packing up your desk, turning off your computer, stacking up what you're going to work on the next day, packing your bag so you can walk out on time because this job never stops and it's always there. It's always paperwork. It never ends. Don't take it home with you. Don't feel guilty if you haven't finished writing the report. Because I was in a real bad car accident in September and could have died, and so it wouldn't have mattered if I had taken it home to finish it or not. Always take time for yourself because this job never ends. It's paperwork like crazy. You wouldn't imagine. You could not ever imagine how much paperwork it takes to run SPED if you've only been a SPED teacher. Like I came from a district where the teachers scheduled and did their own arts and the diag just did the diag stuff. Now I'm the clerk, the facilitator, and the diag in this district, which becomes a lot. So if you know that's not what you want and you can't handle that, don't take that job because you're just so desperate to have your first job. But everybody needs experience, so I took my first job that way. Allow your parents to speak with case managers all the time. Refer them to the case manager, principal, administrator about small things because they're going to come to you about grades, buses, lunch schedules. They're going to come to you about accommodations and modifications, things you know nothing about because you just write the R. You're just sitting there managing it. And so you don't know if the kid is getting their accommodations and modifications. You don't know if the lead teacher has passed out their information. You don't know any of this once you leave your R. Mainly because it's not your job to. It's the case manager. That's why they have a lead teacher or a case manager. So when they start calling about grades or they want to change buses, that's the bus yard's problem. Or the kids not getting picked up on time, bus yard. Or they're not getting their accommodations, lead teacher, case manager, inclusion teacher, whatever. But a lot of things that they're going to get you caught up in because you're there, they're going to try to push off on you and say, well, you need to talk to the diag. No. That's a campus-based issue. You got kids running off campus, they need to be dealt with just like they would any other child. And then I noticed that during my first year, they try to spare the kids from being suspended. Some principals do, some principals don't. My thing is, if you don't ever give them any consequences, then how do they know that they're doing wrong? And then all of a sudden you want to manifest them. That's not how it works. They need to keep strict documentation in whatever system it is that they're supposed to document in. Don't just tell you on the fly, hey, so-and-so is acting out of my class. Doesn't mean anything to me because I'm not writing it down. The case manager and the teacher needs to know. They need to work together to work that out. They need to call the parent meeting and sit down and discuss. Reginald's running out of class, or he's cussing everybody out in class. And once you all come up with a plan, or you're following his behavior plan or his intervention plan or whatever, and it's not working, it's when you get involved. If they don't have a behavior plan or they don't have an FBA, that's when you get involved. If this is some new behavior, then yeah, we need to kind of document this and see how long this is going on, things of that nature. But don't let them pull you in first. Never let them pull you in first. I may think about some more things that I'll put up as the year goes on. But right now we're going into STAR amendments for those students who are 8th grade or 5th grade or 3rd grade who have not passed the STAR. Now, my old district, when 8th graders took the STAR, we could put in there 2nd and 3rd administration may not be given based on goals and objectives. They'll be promoted. Things like that. Some districts don't want that. They want their kids to take a second shot. But in my opinion, it's not fair for a kid with a disability who's in resource, struggling anyway, who's failed and never passed the STAR, to be put through a 2nd and 3rd administration of a test. That just stresses them out and gives them more anxiety, and the parents more anxiety. So if you like this video, hit like, share with your friends. I may come back with some more comments. Thanks, Mina. Bye.